So we are getting into the ECS section, but before talking about ECS, we need to talk about Docker. So Docker is something you may have heard before. I'll try to simplify it. You can make a 12-hour long course on Docker, but I'll try to make it short in 4 minutes. So what is Docker? Docker is a software development platform to deploy apps. So the way we've been deploying applications from before is to install them on Linux and then they will work. But with Docker, you will package your app into something called a container, and that container is very special because it can be run on any operating system very easily. The app, once in a container, will run the exact same way regardless of where they run. So it could be any machine, no compatibility issues, with predictable behavior, less work, easier to maintain and deploy. It will work with any programming language, any operating system, any technology. And with Docker, you can scale containers up and down very quickly in a matter of seconds. So that makes Docker something that is extremely powerful nowadays to deploy applications. So if we talk about Docker on an EC2 instance, we would have, for example, a Docker running Java code, a Docker running Node.js code, a Docker running a MySQL database, a Docker running Java, and so on, all onto the same EC2 instance. So the idea is that if we manage to package our application in a Docker container, then it will become very easy for us to run it on an EC2 instance. So Docker images, you need to create them. This is how your container will be run, and they can be stored in something called Docker repositories. So there is a public Docker repository called the Docker Hub, available at this address, and you can find the base images for many technologies or operating systems. So for Ubuntu, which is a Linux operating system, or MySQL, this is a database technology, Node.js, Java programming languages, or as we'll see in this section, we can use Amazon ECR, which is a private Docker repository. So this is where you can store your private Docker images. So this is more advanced, but the question is, do you want to use Docker or a virtual machine? So Docker is sort of a virtualization technology, but not exactly. So the resources are shared with the host. That means that you can have many containers on one server. So if we look at comparing EC2 and Docker, this is how it works. So we have the infrastructure, which is on AWS, the host operating system, then the hypervisor, and this is stuff we don't have access to. And then finally, when we get an EC2 instance, we have our application onto the guest operating system. And so if we want another EC2 instance, it will be created like this, and a third EC2 instance, it will be created like that. So this works great, and this is what happens when we create EC2 instances. But in the case of Docker, we have the infrastructure, the host OS, which is the EC2 instance, and then the Docker daemon. And then as soon as the Docker daemon is running, we can have many containers running onto the Docker daemon, and they're more lightweight. They don't come with a full operating system and a virtual machine, all of them. And so that makes Docker very versatile, very easy to scale, and very easy to run. So this is just an overview of Docker. You don't need to know what Docker is going into the exam, but I wanted to give you that sweet little overview in case you were curious. And in the next lecture, we'll deal about how to do Docker on AWS, and that will be ECS. So I will see you in the next lecture.